by. In 3, 2, 1.
Reality. Are you living it?
You are a function of this total galaxy, bounded by the Milky Way, and that furthermore, this galaxy is a function of all other galaxies.
Our reality.
The show that will stretch your consciousness and awaken you to a world of unlimited possibilities. It's time to change the world. It's time for an awakening. It's time for Our Reality. Hosted by your emissary to planet Earth, Violeta Frankovic.
And good morning, everyone. Welcome to Our Reality, where every week we try to talk about either a current topic from our reality, or something that has happened in our reality in the past. Notable figures, different topics about physics, aliens, and anything really that comes up as interesting. Today's topic will be one that's very special to me. It's going to be about Nikola Tesla. And Nikola Tesla was from the same country I'm from, ex-Yugoslavia, and he actually was born 80 miles from where I grew up. So I thought that would be a very interesting topic for me. As far as my background, I'm definitely an alien in a human body. I've always identified as such, secretly though, in the beginning of my life. And now we have a lot more people coming forward, as hybrids, sharing that they also have the same feelings and same alien contacts, where we are, slowly realizing that we're actually a part of a global community and not just a part of a nation or a planetary, I guess, community, you could say, right? So yes, so in the beginning of my journey, I was born in ex-Yugoslavia and lived there through a war, and then moved to Germany, stayed there for about 8 years, and then moved to Chicago and subsequently to Las Vegas. My alien contacts ranged throughout all my life, especially when I was a child. Up until 35 was really, really heavy contact. And then later on, it simmered down a little bit at my request. But let's talk about Nikola Tesla today. So Nikola was very interesting to me because my father is a machine engineer, and he was obsessed with Tesla. When I was a little girl, I remember in his room there was books and volumes of Nikola Tesla's works in Serbian, and he would constantly talk about Tesla to the point that really, it was annoying for me at a time. But at the same time, I learned to love Tesla and to learn what he was all about from my dad, and maybe some anecdotes that he had mentioned of Tesla's. So we will start with maybe a chronology. By no means, an expert on Tesla, but I thought it would be a very interesting topic, since I see Tesla not just as an inventor. I actually prefer to connect people on an emotional level and to feel what this person was feeling or thinking, or from what I've read about them. You can always, you can always, socialize with people by reading their material, reading about their lives. So just like you get to know a common friend that's alive today, and you learn about them, their mom, dad, where they're from, and you end up talking with them. Same thing, you can socialize with past figures, who are already dead, by doing the same thing, because by learning, same thing. The only difference is they're currently, they cannot reply to you verbally in a sound manner the same way someone who's alive today would, but you can pick up on their thoughts or their vibration by reading about them and reading their works. So that's how I tended actually to form friendships with figures from history when I was a little girl. So Okay, let's go into Nikola Tesla. Let's see, Nikola Tesla. So he was born in a little village called Smiljan. It's actually about exactly 80 miles from where I was born. And he was born on a night, at a stroke of midnight, they say, but around midnight, in the midst of a storm. So there was a storm going on and lightning when he was born. And he was born to his parents. His father was a Serbian Orthodox priest, and his mom, she was inventor. She actually invented little things at home that she would, and she was actually credited for her great memory. She was very good with memory, and they say that she remembered a lot of Serbian epic poems, which I've seen them. They're crazy long. So if she remembered any of that, she must have had a pretty good memory, right? So his mom's name was Juka, and dad's name was Milutin. And he had three sisters, Milka, Angelina, and Marica, and one brother, Dane, or Danilo. And his brother, actually, I've read a lot of publications about in ex-Yugoslavia about Tesla and his brother, and I'm not sure if this is true or not, but they say when they were little, that because that area during the time when they were little was actually under Austro-Hungarian Empire, but he was an ethnic Serb. But they say that they were apprehended one time because they were playing and they would be able to move objects. So they were kind of, it was crazy at that time, and they were apprehended one time. Not sure if it's true or not, but I did read it in one of the publications. So I remember reading also that Nikola said a lot good things about his brother, that he was very, very gifted, and that Nikola would actually grow up in his shadow after Dane was killed in a horse riding accident, and then Tesla was actually left behind as the only son, and it's thought that he lived kind of in the shadow of his brother and wanted. Actually, I remember reading about his statements about his brother and how much he loved him, and he said that if I was only a smidgen of a genius as my brother was. And, here he turned out to be the genius, right? The genius of... his brother must have been very smart as well. So Nikola was born as the fourth child, and got his name from his grandpa, actually. And he spent his first 9 years in his birth town, and his basically... So what I'm doing here is I'm connecting my research from what I've researched from actually publications from Serbia and Yugoslavia, because it's one thing to read about someone coming from maybe a second part of his life where he was already in America, and it's another thing to actually come from that country and read about them from their place of origin. You get kind of the best of the both worlds, because his first 28 years he did spend in Europe, and then he moved to the United States, and then his second part is maybe better here because he was here for that part of his life. But for his first part of his life, they're saying that because a lot of people in his household were busy, he became he was a very lonely child. He felt like animals, even as he was a little boy, he felt that animals were his best friends. And in his memories during his life, he remembers his childhood as this wonderful story in which the main characters are not his family members as much as animals. I remember my dad talking to me a lot about how Tesla would have this cat and he would stroke it, and there would be, of course, static, and he was so enamored with the concept of static. Or he would go and watch how a lightning rod would discharge into a mountain as a little kid, and so we can say that in general, his childhood was a happy childhood where he was able to play outside and observe the natural world wonders, right? It was happy until his older brother Dane fell from the horse, and it was a very hard hit for his parents. So then let's take the chronology. So just to make it a little easier to understand where we're going. Okay, so he was born 1856, and then he goes to school. In 1869, he finishes it's a gymnasium called in Gospic, which is around the same area. There, he's probably in the first part of his life not really going. It's a 100-mile radius. I know that area very well. In 1973, he finishes high school in Karlovac, where I was born, and then he goes on to Graz, Austria, in 1875, where he is at the Polytechnic Institute. Later, he studied philosophy in Prague, and in 81, he starts the career as an engineer. Now, it's interesting that he studied philosophy, because what I like to observe, we could go through all the things that he was as an inventor, but I really like to look at who he was as a person. Because throughout his life, constantly you will find this high integrity that he had. Basically, he could not be bought. He would not betray his friends for money. He was not unthankful. There's even a story where, Westinghouse, I believe, asked him, if he could give up his patents or told him that he was going to go bankrupt if Tesla keeps claiming his patents, and Tesla just ripped up the contract right there and then. That later could have made him billions of dollars. But to him, it didn't matter. The money didn't matter as much as the friendship. So those are one of the things that are very remarkable for me, and actually a sign of a high intelligence, because if you see what's running our world currently, which are people who are so money hungry that they're literally, in their mind, it's okay to kill thousands of people just as long as they have a few more $1 billion. That's very low intelligence, very low the development scale. And then you have someone as Nikola, and I'm sure there's many, many other people who are also that way, but who was highly intelligent, a genius, and to whom money didn't matter. Money doesn't go over lives and so on. So some of his, I want to read you some of his thoughts, and I'm translating, so I might be slow. He said, there is something very scary about the universe when we look at it and think about that only our perceptions of hearing and seeing make it wonderful. Just think about it. The universe is darker than the darkest pen writing, and it's colder than the coldest ice, and it's quieter than the quietest grave, with all its bodies, planetary bodies, that are rushing through the space with an incredible acceleration. How inspiring of a magnitude, and how inspiring of an energy that is, isn't it? And then he says, today's young person that wants a light future has to work on his ideals, but not look at the material gain from it. So, which makes sense, because if you really want to achieve something great, your end result cannot be material, because then your thoughts and the ways of getting there, the quality is not as amazing as it is when you actually have higher ideals in mind than just the material gain. And then he continues to say, the most successful person in life is the one that gets filled by so much happiness when he can say that he's finishing his daily work and he made it the best he could for his statesmen or people around him. So that's very beautiful, So he always did things with others in mind. And then he says about radio, he says, radio, I know I had a big part in creating it, but I don't like the radio. I just don't like it. It's senseless. I never listen to it. Radio distracts me and destroys my the direction of my mind and my brain waves. There is so many distractions in this life that stand in the way of quality of thoughts, and quality, not quantity of thoughts, is what's important. So I think he was like a deep, deep person and very emotional, which it's interesting because he was born under the sign of Cancer, and Cancer people, if you're one of them listening, or if you know anybody who's Cancer in your life, like they're very deep people and they're very emotional people. And no wonder that someone like that would say something like that. Later, I read about, theories that he was brought to Earth from Venus. I mean, in my opinion, that's nonsense, that he was brought at a stroke of midnight. It's not necessary because the aliens, they have technology where they induce us into the body, in the womb already. So you become a hybrid before you actually come out of the womb. So there is, it's not necessary for the Superman story where, the person's brought onto Earth physically and then given to the parents. It's nonsense, I think, in my opinion, So because we, and when I say we, I mean extraterrestrials who are born in human bodies and who are here to raise the consciousness, the hybrids or whatever you call us, we were born to human parents. But I was born to my mom, gave birth to me, and same thing, Tesla's mom gave birth to him. But however, the essence can definitely be alien and maybe even from Venus. Why not? I would agree with that. Why not? So his life. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about it. So we stopped when he was actually in Graz in Austria, and he attended the Polytechnic University with a scholarship from the military frontier. But he lost his scholarship, unfortunately, when the military frontier fell apart, and he never finished his second year at the university. The interesting part is, a lot of times the geniuses are also self-taught, because if you're a genius or if you're a highly intelligent person, you end up observing everything around you, you pick up on things, and it's not school necessarily that makes you a genius. It gives you maybe some knowledge here and there, where you can make connections, but it's not something that makes you or breaks you as a genius. So you will see a lot of times geniuses not always doing the best in school because they're so distracted. They're on a mission, a mission that they uncovered throughout their life within themselves. And being exceptional at school is not really on top of their priority list, but it's following that star inside themselves. So this is an interesting part, which my dad told me about a lot of times. I didn't believe him, but but he told me that also when Nikola was younger, that he was a little bit of a gambler. He was enamored with the concept, and he started playing cards and gambling to try to make up for the financial losses. However, he doesn't manage and decides to leave university before entering his third year. And I remember my dad telling me stories, which I'm like, is he inventing this? But I guess it's true. And he says that he was enamored with roulette and cards, so much so that his mom, Juka, one time said, "Okay, Nikola, we'll sell everything we have just so you can gamble." And then that's what made him stop when his mom, because he loved his mom so much. But this shows you maybe a raw picture of Nikola. I mean, of course, he was a genius, but we have to remember that nobody's perfect. Nobody in life is perfect, and nobody's life is perfect. And people go through a lot of stages in their lives. It doesn't diminish the quality and the essence of them. And there's always room for a comeback, as we will see with Nikola. So then he, for a short while, he worked in Maribor, which Maribor is in Slovenia. And after the death of his father in 1879, he moved back to Gospić, where it's near Smiljan. And he worked in the real gymnasium there. And in 1880, he tried to enroll in university in the Prague, yet isn't accepted, and a year later begins working in Budapest, constructing his first telephone network. And he says, although I must trace to my mother's influence whatever inventiveness I possess, the training my father gave me must have been helpful. It comprised of all sorts of exercises, as guessing one another's thoughts, discovering the defects of some form of expression, repeating long sentences, or performing mental calculations. These daily lessons were intended to strengthen memory and reason, and especially to develop the critical sense, and were undoubtedly very beneficial. My mother descended from one of the oldest families in the country and a line of inventors. Both her father and grandfather originated numerous implements for household, agricultural, and other uses. She was truly a great woman, of rare skill, courage, and fortitude, who had braved the storms of life and passed through many a trying experience. My mother was an inventor of the first order and would, I believe, have achieved great things had she not been so remote from modern life and its multifold of opportunities. She invented and constructed all kinds of tools and devices and wove the finest designs from thread, which was spun by her. She even planted the seeds, raised the plants, and separated the fibers herself. She worked indefatigably from break of the day till late at night, and most of the wearing apparel and furnishings of the home was the product of her hands. When she was past 60, her fingers were still nimble enough to tie knots in an eyelash. So he was very, very fond of his mother. I remember he had already moved to the United States and he was holding a speech. And when he felt his mother is gravely ill, because as he says here, telepathy was a part of his upbringing, because his father would teach him that, to guess each other's thoughts. So telepathically, he could pick up that something was wrong with his mom, and he went quiet as he was speaking in front of an audience, and he he felt his mother was gravely ill, and from there he went directly back to Yugoslavia to visit his mom, and he made it right before she died. I think literally a few hours before she died, so he was able to be with her. But he was highly, highly sensitive individual. So anyways, this was to paint a picture of him when he was still in Yugoslavia, or still in that part of Europe. And then when we come back, we're going to take a short break. When we come back, we're going to look at Nikola after he moved to United States and started working with Edison, and we'll take it from there. All right, so here's the short break, and we'll be right back, guys. Thank you.
And now, your emissary to planet Earth, the host of our reality, Violeta Frankovic.
Hey everyone, welcome back to our reality, and today we're talking about Nikola Tesla, one of the greatest inventors that ever lived. And I'm approaching it from a more, familiar perspective rather than a technical, he invented this, and this. Because if you just Google him, you will see all the things that he invented and how great he was. But what I like to always focus on is who was he as a person, because there is a person and a depth beyond all the inventions. The inventions are an outside representation of everything that was inside him, right? But who was he as a person? That's what I'm concentrating on mostly. And to me, he was a very sensitive person, very kind person from what it looks like. So we stopped when he was actually, after he left Prague, the city of Prague, so he went to Paris and to work in Paris. And then later in 1884, he was 28 years old, Serbian-born inventor, and he immigrated to America from Paris. And as he passed through Ellis Island, his only possessions, they say at that time, were a book of poetry, which shows that he was very sensitive. So if you are sensitive, don't feel bad. Some of the greatest people in the world are sensitive, and some of the greatest inventors in history were very sensitive people. So it consisted of a book of poetry, a letter of recommendation, and exactly 4 cents in American currency at that time. Now, that letter of recommendation was at that time, it was addressed to one of the most famous businessmen in America at that time, who was Thomas Edison. And Edison and Tesla, they did collaborate for a short time, but eventually they had a disagreement and it soured. Basically, over the next decade that Tesla would be here, the heated rivalry set off an electrical revolution. A lot of times rivalry is good because then people try to outdo each other, and it drastically changes the lives of people around them. A lot of times for the better, because they end up competing. So Tesla was the proponent of the AC current, Thomas Edison the DC current, and the alternating current. And basically, those patents, they were worth hundreds of millions of dollars. And the Tesla's royalties were so valuable that he could have easily become the world's first billionaire and the richest person on the planet by a long shot. But nothing, none of that happened. Not only, he was always, when I read about him, his goal was never to become rich. His goal was never to be the world's richest person. As I read his thoughts, the first half of the show, he was very much a sensitive person who wanted to make the world a better place, and he knew that he was on a mission, I believe, and that we leave and go somewhere, and so becoming rich here in this realm was just a waste of time. It's not really important to him. He only wanted money so he can invest in his projects. So he he invested in a lot of projects and patents. And when he initially came to America, he landed a job with Edison, which was a nice start. And it came with a little weekly salary of $18, which is equal to $440 weekly in current US dollars. And then Edison also offered him a $50,000 bonus, $1 million in modern dollars, if he could redesign and significantly improve the current direct current electrical motor system. And then Tesla did accomplish that feat within just 2 months, but Edison refused to pay him the $50,000, claiming the bonus was just a joke. And Edison explained, "Tesla, you don't understand American humor." And instead, he offered him a $10 a week raise. Tesla refused the raise and quit that very same day. That was a little bit of a jerky move, in my opinion, from Edison. And with all due respect, that was not a good move. But anyways, so that was his sense of joking, I guess. And so in his next endeavor was his Tesla Light and Manufacturing Company. But that soon failed, and he found himself forced to dig ditches in the street to earn money. So a lot of ups and downs in life, right? And then prior to 1880, there was not a home on earth that had electricity. In 1879, then Thomas Edison first demonstrated his incandescent light in Menlo Park, New Jersey, and then he founded his company, Edison General Electric. So Edison was a pioneer of the direct current. And direct current would be that simple system, but it would come with extreme limitations. DC system became the standard system around the world at that time. And then Edison made a fortune building hundreds of DC-powered sources all over the country. Now, in April 1887, the Tesla Electric Company was founded, and within a few months, Tesla built and patented what would become his most significant invention, the brushless alternating current motor. So this new AC, alternating current AC, like that famous band AC/DC. So the alternating current motor quickly proved to be vastly superior to the standard direct current system. And then the three-phase AC induction motor was by far most efficient way to convert electricity to mechanical power, and also that electrical power could be carried exponentially longer distances at a cost that was 1,000 times cheaper than the Edison's DC system. And then today, basically, just a modern example, today every single household in America is wired with alternating current outlets, but direct current is still used for things like batteries, for example. So, but imagine how many batteries you would need to power a refrigerator and how quickly those batteries would run out of juice. So AC was definitely an improvement to it. So I would say both Edison and Tesla were fathers of electricity, because Edison started it, Tesla improved it. Had we stayed on the Edisons, not much would be powered, but then Tesla came and improved it. So I would say good that them two work together. It's a good thing, even though they disagreed later. So okay, so then after the word spread of the alternating current superior capabilities, Tesla was approached by Westinghouse Electric and Manufacturing Company, and he was offered a generous deal to license his technology. And he met with George Westinghouse and agreed to license his patents for the sum of $60,000 plus 150 shares of stock and $2.50 royalty per horsepower generated by the motor. And then he was given a 2,000 month salary to work for Westinghouse, which he just turned into more patents and more inventions. So furthermore, the 60,000 lump sum he got was, worth roughly 1.4 million in today's dollars. But his windfall really didn't come from stocks, or salary or bonuses. It came from those royalties. Okay, so let's see. So unfortunately, the Edison and Tesla's war of the currents, because Edison was not happy to see his direct current cash cow patent threatened. There was a PR started to, where Edison was trying to disqualify the alternating current as dangerous, and the war of the currents was took a big financial toll on his investor Westinghouse. Edison could weather the storm because he was backed by the millionaire financier J.P. Morgan, but it was hard for Westinghouse. And then Westinghouse approached Tesla with a proposition, and he begged Tesla to lower or temporarily rescind his royalty in order to allow the company to survive. And Westinghouse explained that if the company went bankrupt, Tesla would be faced with a nearly impossible task of retrieving his royalties. So, and then to Westinghouse amazement, Tesla just tore up the contract right in front of him, right on the spot, because he was so grateful to Westinghouse for believing in him, and when nobody did. And basically, when he had that fight with Edison, Westinghouse came to his help. So out of gratitude, he didn't care about the royalties and the money. Now, by tearing up that contract and relinquishing the royalties, Tesla basically single-handedly saved the Westinghouse Electric Company, but he threw away $1 billion fortune. In retrospect, had he kept that contract, he was a brilliant inventor. Had he kept his contract, he would have been one of the richest people on Earth today, or his relatives after his death, right? But even by conservative estimates, he would have been the richest person, the first person with a 1 billion net worth. But that was never the point in his life. That was never something he wanted. He wanted to improve Earth, and he wanted to help the inhabitants. So later on, he would work on many projects, patents. I mean, there's over 300 patents that have been filed under Tesla, and we will look at some of his brilliant inventions and some of the things he actually would realize, and some that he would never realize, because he was so far ahead of his time that a lot of times, even when he showed Westinghouse some of his drawings and plans, Westinghouse didn't think the Earth was ready for that. But he still he still remained Tesla's loyal friend. George Westinghouse remained Tesla's loyal friend until death, and he paid for his hotel room that Tesla lived in, and his meals were also paid by George Westinghouse. I'm sure George was also very happy that Tesla tore up that contract and helped him. So in turn, George helped him back. That's kind of cool, because in life, life comes and goes. Money comes and goes, but that spark of friendship and good feelings is what remains. But eventually, Thomas Edison ended up also racking up his own mountain of debt during the War of Currents, and J.P. Morgan, which J.P. Morgan Chase Bank, it used the debt to gain full control of the company away from Edison, and then merged Edison General Electric with the Thomson Houston Electric Company of Massachusetts. And Edison's name and responsibilities were removed from the newly formed company, which is General Electric. And today, still, General Electric is a thriving company that owns thousands of businesses and has a market cap of $244 billion. And also, Westinghouse would go on to thrive for decades and even purchase television network CBS in '95. And Westinghouse and CBS were purchased then by Viacom in 1999. So this paints a picture where these two inventors, right, Edison and Tesla, I mean, they're both great inventors and passionate, and obviously intelligent, both of them. And they're fighting this war of currents, right? And they're both seeking to improve people's lives. And then these financiers come in, which have nothing to do with inventions, but they're capitalist minds, right? Because money rules at the end of the day. Money, you have money, you're the mover and shaker, and here you are. That's what's wrong with the system of the earth today. Wherever money or currency is in play, you have two great inventors, and then you have two great financiers that basically benefited from these inventions, both of them, J.P. Morgan from Edison and Westinghouse from Tesla. And while these two fought, these financiers got rich, and still to this day rule the world in a way, through their companies. So that's an interesting point, I feel, in life in general. So then Tesla basically goes on, to have all these patents and inventions, which you can read at. Read about, and due to shortage of time, I'm not going to mention them all. But I am going to mention the interesting part where the Philadelphia experiment, for example, it was carried out after Tesla's death, but Tesla is said to have provided the motors. And if you're not familiar with the Philadelphia experiment, it's where basically they wanted to make the ship disappear from the radar, but the ship disappeared in real life and went into hyperspace and came back. So it's a very interesting experiment. You should look it up if you don't know about it already. But at that time, when they were going to do it initially, Tesla had proposed that every crew member wear a bracelet, a 0-point bracelet that will basically keep them grounded, because the scientists, knew what's going to happen, that they're not just trying to make the ship disappear from the radar, but the ship could, with this electromagnetic frequencies, that the ship could disappear from reality altogether. So, but the official story for the newspaper was that they were just trying to make it disappear to the radar. I mean, there's always an official story and a background story, so that would be the background. So he wanted the 0-point bracelets for the people on the ship, and they said no. There's not enough funding for it, and that's where Nikola actually abandoned the project, because he was concerned about the well-being. As later on, it's reported that once the ship came back from hyperspace, it disappeared to the naked eye. Once it came back, that most of the crew had died or was actually merged with the ship. Basically, you would find people hands sticking out of the walls, because we still officially, in the official science that's accessible to us normal people, we don't know a lot about hyperspace officially. So God knows what happened there exactly. But I thought that was a nice thing that he was so concerned about the people that he had abandoned the project once they declined the 0-point bracelets. So now let's see. I skipped through a lot because we only have 9 more minutes for the show. But he was basically in 1937. Actually, Tesla was in an accident, and he died in 1943 in a New Yorker hotel in New York. But in between there, he is, living in the New Yorker hotel. He's still working on his patents and inventions. He becomes a great friend of Mark Twain's because during an illness, he ends up crediting Mark Twain's books for bringing him back to health, because Tesla was so sick he couldn't really go out, and he ended up reading all Mark Twain's books and loved Mark Twain and ended up being his friend, which is amazing, I think. I've read a lot about their friendship, and it seems like Mark Twain was a genius of his own kind and a very independent thinker, and didn't really care about what people said around, him. And Tesla was kind of the same way. He was beating to his own drum. He was never trying to appease anyone just so he can get ahead in life. If it was wrong, it was wrong. He would leave it, So that integrity is unfortunately doesn't get far in life as far as finances. But the geniuses always have that integrity, and they become famous posthumously, or their genius is untainted by these little lack of achievements monetarily, right? Because we still talk about Tesla, even though he died very poor. That's not what we know him for. When we talk about now Bill Gates, we're going to be, he was the richest person, or Bezos. But what did he really do for humanity? No, what did they really do for humanity? Did they really help? So money doesn't, like we talked last week, we talked about Kali Yuga being all about, people valuing money so much. And this is just the opposite, where even Edison didn't value money so much as helping, and Tesla did the same thing. So did Mark Twain. So this is cool that they were friends, him and Mark Twain. Some of his interesting, let's see. Well, today, for example, one more reason why I like Tesla is I remember being in Belgrade, Serbia, 2016, and approached on the street. Actually, I was trying to buy a book about him. This guy who was an expert on Tesla, and he was telling me about the Nikola Tesla Museum in Belgrade, Serbia, because that's Nikola's final resting place. Nikola Tesla's ashes were flown from New York to Belgrade, which also has an airport. The Nikola Tesla International Airport in Belgrade, Serbia, is named after him. And his final resting place, the ashes of Nikola, are at the Nikola Tesla Museum in Belgrade. They're in a golden sphere, and they can be still seen there today. A lot of Tesla's original writings have been actually transferred to Belgrade as well. Originally, there were supposed to be 80 boxes shipped to Belgrade at the request of the Yugoslav ambassador to the U.S. at that time, and also that same ambassador, his name is Sava Kosanovic, was a nephew of Tesla's. So he had fought for and requested the original writings of Tesla's to be transferred back to Serbia. There was originally 80 boxes, but only 60 made it there. So whether the government fit in the 80 into the 60 or kept the 20 that they felt was something that they didn't want to leave United States, we don't know, but that's what happened. And it's kind of cool that we still have a place that he's there, and a lot of his writings can be seen. And then a lot of them are also kept in vaults in a basement of the museum. I was told that nobody has really access to, but probably a select few. Not sure the politics of the land, but another thing that I found interesting, that Tesla was so close to pigeons, which pigeons are amazing creatures. creatures of light, in general, when you approach a pigeon or an animal, but pigeons especially, that's why they symbolize peace and symbolize, a lot of times spirit, right? And God, because you approach a pigeon, you're never going to feel threatened. It's always this beautiful, behavior. Even when you feed them, you can feel this beautiful energy coming from them, emanating from them. So no wonder that such a sensitive soul as Nikola Tesla was very fond of pigeons and actually made friends with them and healed them. And if any of you actually took up to feeding pigeons, I know I did, because I was also very ill and loved feeding pigeons because they were great company. But if you ever do, I'm sure you can strike up the friendship just the same, because they're interesting creatures. Not just do they want to eat, but they can be very great friends to anybody, I feel. Some of the notable wanted to actually mention some of his inventions that never got built, which are awesome. I thought one of them is the earthquake machine. And so in 1893, he patented a steam-powered mechanical accelerator that would vibrate up and down at high speeds and generate electricity. And he said one day, when he told reporters that one day while attempting to tune this accelerator to the vibration of the building that was housing his New York City laboratory, he caused the ground to shake. So that's an earthquake machine. Then he was talking about a thought camera. He thought it was possible to photograph our thoughts, which I'm sure scientists are working on. And I apologize, we're at the end of the show. So I'm going to leave you with that. I hope that sparked a lot of inspiration to research this genius further and to think about how great a sensitive person can be. Wish you all the greatest experience in the reality on planet Earth. We'll be back next week with more topics. Stay tuned to KCOR and safe travels through our reality. Goodbye, everyone. Talk to you next week. Bye.
You've been listening to Our Reality, hosted by Violeta Frankovic. Live every Saturday from the heart of Las Vegas, Nevada, exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. For more information on the host as well as the show, as well as upcoming guests, please check out our reality show page at kcorradio.com.
Our reality.
From the ordinary to the extraordinary, we've got you covered. Our reality, changing the world, one topic at a time. This is KCOR Las Vegas, home of the Digital Radio Network, broadcasting from a shack just south of Area 51.
Wait, that doesn't exist.
This is the KCOR Digital Radio Network. Now for the news.